It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Planet Green Trees.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen. The Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Gonna do it live.
Alrighty.
We have launched.
I guess we're launched and we're live.
We're live. Doing it live. We'll do it live, Justin.
Welcome, everybody. We're listening to Planet Green Trees. Hope you can hear us loud and clear. I can't really hear anything right now.
They
okay.
can.
All right, good.
I assure you.
Let me,
This is all Justin's fault.
Justin!
So we're rocking and rolling it right now, I guess. Here we go. What's today? 5:13. I understand that this is the Planet Green Tree show we're now listening to.
It is.
And it's episode 515. Today's date is 5/13/2021. I'm Michael Komorn, your host, and today I'm going to be identifying as a wannabe professional pitcher, 52, with a knuckleballer. I'm identifying that I'm going to be called up to the majors.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going with tonight.
There you go.
Watch knuckleballer on the way over here. On this episode tonight, we're going to be talking about the following topics. I may rant a little bit. Charges reinstated in the alleged breath test machine fraud case.
Boom.
Congressional bill to federally legalize marijuana filed by Republican lawmakers.
Ooh, interesting.
DEA reports show that marijuana arrests and seizures have gone up in 2020.
How could that be? That
I
doesn't
don't
make
know.
any sense.
So much legalization.
Doesn't make any sense.
And belly button cannabis is a thing.
What the hell is belly button cannabis?
Now where are we
But
putting...
does it heal? Let me see. I had some other things that I'm going to throw out there just for.
My God.
Let me see. I'll do this. I can see with that, and then hold on. What? What do you got?
I just want to know what belly button cannabis.
Well, we're going to find out.
Yeah,
Obviously,
we are.
today's that day.
Good.
For anyone that wanted to know, needed to know. That's all happening. Let's see here. I thought I chose some. Let's see. There's a couple other ones that these are more freshies from maybe the most recent.
Freshy.
Very fresh.
Well, we've got this thing with the Flushing Township
yeah.
residents say they feel they were used
Absolutely.
And
after
abused.
Planning Commission passes marijuana orders. That's one. And
I heard Eric Gunnels was involved in that kerfuffle.
Yep, I heard so too, and
okay, well he likes to get
I heard
involved in.
he's on the board or something, some review board. So maybe we should try to get him on the air to
yeah, let me
tell us
send
a little
him
bit about it.
message.
Okay.
So, Eric, if you're listening,
Gunnels.
about to
Gunning for
send
Gunnels.
you
We're going to find out
message.
tonight how does one bring life to my dry cannabis, and we're going to ask and call out from a person that identifies as the stoner, and we'll see if there's any truth to that. Also, we want to make sure and figure out how to ensure adequate water supply to outdoor cannabis when there's a drought. Is that a thing?
Yes.
All right, so let's go around the room and everyone can introduce themselves and announce if they feel like they need to identify with any characters if I've tried to disclose tonight. Okay, so we'll start with, we got the bunker people, and they are identified as couches and musical instruments. It's obvious from the way they carry themselves. Next we have Jim Powers.
Yes.
Jim, what's going on over there? How you doing?
I'm good. I identify as a potato.
Okay,
So that's good.
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, good.
No one should feel obligated. It's just if you're feeling, I can't. I want to.
I'm happy to share that.
I don't think
I
it's-
identify as a potato. I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right.
So
Well, I myself
A
am
potato.
having a little bit of an identity crisis.
That can happen too. That can happen too. And if that's happening, all right, Jim, you ready? Do you want to beyond the tomatoes? Are there any special requests that go along with that?
no. I mean, maybe some bacon, some
Ooh.
butter, maybe some cheese.
What about as a soup?
Yeah, I mean, soup is always good. You throw a little ham in there,
Yeah,
and it gets real good.
I like the way you think on that. You know, I saw a restaurant one time that was called the Spud Shack.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking
And
about.
think about how many possibilities you have with that.
Yeah, that's
Here's a
right.
question.
Put anything on Spuds.
That's right.
There was a place called Tally Hall. Does anyone know what this is?
No,
No? Nobody?
no.
Any listeners in Planet Green Cheese Land remember Tally Hall? It's close. It used to be close. There was like a mall of restaurants.
Oh.
Like the mall, like inside they have different, like almost kiosks for restaurants.
Yeah.
So they had like
okay, like a food court.
yeah, but it was the whole place, like in a you know,
Yeah. it
there was
sounds
no other
good.
real mall.
Yeah.
They had, you know, but they had one place that was a spud place. You'd go there and say, "You give me some of that cheese and some of that sour cream over there, and throw some of that on there."
Yeah.
And you walk out with a couple of spuds. It didn't matter, you know. It was
That's right. It's good.
You could have the baked potato. You could have
Right.
the freaking shoestrings. You
They-
could have the curlies. You could have Spuds.
The
come in
possibilities
all
are really
shapes and
endless
sizes.
with a potato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they had a thing.
I
They
mean,
had some,
just let the imagination go wild.
That's right.
and they had to have, if I'm not mistaken, some kind of special thing that they did where they like almost inserted it. You know, they like pulled it out like it's a hard shell. Maybe they inserted something in there. And you pull it
Yeah,
out.
there you
It's
go.
like you know, or like a cream. I don't know what it was.
Everybody likes to insert it into
Get
the
creative.
potato.
There you go. Oh yeah, I get it. Okay. The other thing was they did
Just go and
the
laugh.
other one that was really good. They did thing was like pretzels. I mean that's not new, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, pretzels is
Yeah.
That's I love.
What about Tel 12 Mall? Anyone remember the
Oh,
Tel
yeah.
12 Mall?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I
What
was
about
out
Orange
about
Julius's from there? Remember that?
Everybody
Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
we
Orange
saw.
Julius
No.
is still a thing
Yeah.
Is
we
it?
saw
in some of the
that.
malls. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Combined with Dairy Queen.
That's
They're
right.
delicious.
That's right.
Julius.
It's a little Orange Julius.
Kid likes the Orange Julius.
Yeah.
Spencer's Gifts and Gags was in
Yep.
that store there too. I think that
Still
was a
at
thing.
the
Yeah.
you
Still
can go to the
Spencer's.
Oakland Mall and
Spencer's is coming
They have one
back.
there?
they got one
Briarwood
there.
Mall has this,
Yeah.
I worked at the Oakland Mall
no,
once.
that's the Journey.
The store may still. Let me think. The store may still be there. It was. I'm not gonna think of what it was. It was like a candy store that was there,
Yeah.
and it was when gummy bears first started. We're talking a long time ago,
Yeah.
and I worked for the candy stores, like my mom's friend or something, and I dressed up as a bear, for the promotion of the gummy bears, and walked around and like gave out free samples. I don't think you'd even do that today. There'd be too many questions. Like, what is it? You
Yeah,
know,
there would be a lot of questions.
know.
Yeah, a lot of.
why is that
potential
bear
for
with the
error
mask
there.
on going over to those kids and trying to give out candy?
Yeah, what the hell's going
Right,
on?
I got it. It's just not.
You just
not
have
good.
to say you identify as a bear. You'd be
Yeah.
okay.
All right, where were we? Are we okay? So now we have Amanda from Elevation Station who's here, and YouTuber in her own right. Check out the Elevation Station and Amanda Joslin YouTubing. Welcome, Amanda Joslin.
Thank you, Michael. I'm interested to learn more about the topics, and I think we got a nice spread and some dessert tea steeping.
That's right.
Steeping.
Speaking of which, if you have questions on how to properly steep your tea, we will be doing some video that should be out next week. You'll see Steve Miller going through the entire process.
Yeah.
Speaking of YouTube,
We have some tea steeping right now.
Tea steeping right now, and the one and only, Take the Money and Run, Fly like an eagle, and
and some people call him
Abracadabra.
the Space Cowboy.
Abracadabra. That was not a bad one out of that. You know.
Abracadabra. They've been playing that. It's been in regular rotation on WHMI out in
Wow.
Livingston County. It's a good radio station. They play all the good old tunes.
Who still listens to radio in the car?
I don't.
I listen
just
to the satellite radio.
Yeah.
Sometimes Pandora.
I got
That's
off
radio.
the satellite and went back to just standard AM,
terrestrial,
FM radio.
yeah.
I even listened to the little talk radio on AM the other day.
Oy vejmer. Oy vejmer.
I'm not afraid
Yeah.
to go where we
Yeah.
need to go to get some information.
Right.
All right. So
And WHMI.
there's something I was
Going back to our
Local
roots.
news.
That's right.
I found.
putting aside AM talk radio for a second. I do. There's something. There's a authenticity of of listening to the radio, and at the right moment you're in the car listening to a song comes on that you like that you haven't heard in a while, and you you turn
Yeah,
over and
that's a
like
good
that
feeling.
you know what I'm saying, like where
Yeah.
it just happens to connect. When you're listening to it more, it even becomes more meaningful because you're waiting for the song to come on, in the rotation. But now there's so many avenues to listening to music. You just call it up. You need to really, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
Well-
but that gets tiring.
When you drive the cars that I have, you got a choice of cassette tape,
Oh,
AM,
Yeah,
or
love you.
FM.
that's good.
That's it.
I think I have some cassettes. I have. I
still
think I
have-
still have some old Pink Floyd on cassette tape.
Yeah. I have a whole box of cassettes, so I listen to a few of them in my truck sometimes.
You may even get like one of those outside CD players you can plug into the smoke, the lighter. Get one of those things going, run it through there.
Yeah.
Remember there was
the
the
cassette adapter.
yeah the cassette adapter. You put it in that plays it.
I had a
was just
cassette
thinking
adapter and
about
I had
that.
my phone hooked up to it,
Yeah.
and my Firewire thing got frayed, so I need a new one of those. But
Would an iPod work on there or no?
with the cassette adapter, yeah, but you got to have the proper connectors and attachments and things to make that all work.
Sounds like a job for MacGyver.
Right.
Or you just listen to AM, FM radio.
All right, so we do not have Jeff Frazier. Jeff Frazier's not joining us. Where is he? Is he on the Zoom or not?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
We are just.
All right, fine. It's fine. So let's get into these topics here. Is that what we're doing? We're just going to get right into it here, right? Okay, let's go back to the.
We're jumping in.
All right. So there's the Flushing thing. It's not on the list, so that's where I like to
waiting on
start.
Eric.
Nothing on the agenda. We're going off the rails here. So this is okay. So obviously, throughout the last, I don't know when the DeRuiter opinion. I don't recall the date that it came out, but it created some kind of movement in a direction that includes the cities trying to remove the ability to caregive, which is not good. And
No, it's bad.
Yeah, it's very,
Very bad.
Zoning them out.
And because of that, it's become unfortunate. And what's really going on is that the cities are banning it. But this Flushing thing, let's see what goes on with this Flushing thing here. So Flushing, like many other cities, and I think Flushing was even one of the cities in Genesee County that for a long time favored caregiving. In fact, I think I represented at some point the
Yeah.
Clio caregivers and whatnot.
They're not going to eliminate it, but they're going to make it damn near impossible.
So concerns remain for some residents of Flushing after the Planning Commission approved the draft of a marijuana text amendment ordinance. Home occupation text amendment seeks to regulate marijuana growing operations by township caregivers by putting in place new sets of principles many residents have expressed as restrictive to the growing process. Really, really unfortunate how it ended. Buddy Dalton, owner of the Clio cultivation. It would have been fine if they changed a few things, send it back to consulting one more time. It's close. It's getting better. So if you're asking me if it's improving, yes. Is it even close to being right yet? Not quite yet. It's not there yet. A couple things need to be changed of it at this point. The original language of the ordinance, the caregivers would be required to grow and house their plants in secured, locked accessory structure on the property separate from their home, and that the attached building or detached accessory structure not occupy more than 25% of 375 square feet of the residential floor area. Additionally, the ordinance would require caregivers to live on the property, possess at least 5 acres of land, not operate within 50 feet of a property line. It would also allow township staff to conduct inspections of the property and home occupation to ensure that all operations are compliant with the zoning ordinance and applicable local and state laws. Although a majority of the language to the new draft of the ordinance remains the same, principles and sets of regulations have been added and changed that have caused lingering concerns with Dalton and residents Jen Linderman and how grow operations will be affected if there's amendments. So I want to say that seems really, really bad what they're discussing there. First of
Yes.
all,
Definitely
it
does.
seems to be implying that that to caregive in Flushing requires this financial investment that your house isn't good enough anymore. And it's interesting because we're almost like this is almost like the approval of some of the local approvals for retail places back in the day. That's almost what this seems like. You know what I mean? They're going to let them do a caregiver grow, and they're doing it under the auspices of it's a business in a way.
Right.
Like you got to have this much acreage, you got to have a separate building, can't do it in your residence.
Exactly.
Because
what
you're going to do
they're
something.
It's home occupation. That's exactly
And
what they're doing.
They want to be able to come over anytime
And
they want.
call it a business.
Yes.
when it's not.
It's
The
not a
MMA does
business.
not operate
No.
directly in our. And
And not only that, but this I think goes too far. I mean,
it goes
when you
way too far. First of all, the request. I don't know where this started. I don't know if they came in and said, "Hey, redo the ordinances for the caregivers so they're protected." They said, "We're going to ban it and make this stuff." They can't do any of this stuff. It starts the wrong. Now, whether or not in Genesee County, many caregivers have been making a business out of it, and there's resources and outlets that have been left alone and whatnot. I'm not even going to comment. It doesn't
That's not
matter.
what this is about,
It's not what
though.
that's about.
No.
It's about. But I will say this. One of the interesting debates from township to township, city to city is, whether or not it's a home occupational business
right?
or not.
It's not.
I could tell you that.
It says it. It says right in the law that it shall not constitute the sale of a controlled substance. Well, I got news for you. Marijuana is a controlled substance. So tell me, how can a business operate that is not selling marijuana?
Well, the point is that whatever the caregiver is doing is not really for, nor is it supposed to be on display. There's no transparency about it.
Right.
There's nothing about it that requires a disclosure or patient's needs or anything about that.
Or inspections by the city.
Yeah. It's anyways, this is a step in a very, very wrong direction. And the fact that time and energy is being placed here, I would say, is concerning.
Right, but we're going to see more of this.
Yes.
And we're seeing it up north, too. I mean, what we have here are people that are playing in the regulated game. They have a lot of money invested, and they're going to protect their investment. So we can expect that these sorts of efforts to thwart the caregiver system are going to continue, and they're going to be very well funded. And if we don't push back, they're going to be successful. I mean, this is only the beginning. We have to be very mindful of what's going on.
We are going to have to do that. So let me bring to the attention, we since we're talking about the MMA a little bit here, I want to, and Jim, I think we talked a little bit about this, but it was weird because the first, when the issue came up and I was trying to figure out how to potentially solve it, I said to myself, who else can I call that knows anything, that in a circle that can provide intelligent commentary on this never before addressed issue in the MMA. I don't know who else other than here at Komorn Law and the surrounding people maybe. But anyway, so here's the dilemma of what I'm talking about, and it has not happened before. So we know very clearly what understand what the rules are for children getting certified under the MMA, right? You have to have the doctor has to explain the pros and cons of the parent or legal guardian.
Yep.
You have to have two physicians sign the recommendation,
Yep.
and that qualifies a patient
Yep.
who's under the age of 18.
And the parent has to be the caregiver.
And then the parent has to be the caregiver, with the caregiver being the sole person responsible for acquisition, dosing, and frequency of use. And it turns out that there's a glitch in the system, because the system in this section in particular discusses, without mentioning an age of a parent, the reality that it's the parent, and a parent is the parent.
Oh,
And if they're a legal parent, meaning they're, there's nothing, I mean, I don't even know what the opposite of this would be or what the alternative would be, but as a parent, you're allowed to make certain decisions.
Yep.
And the MMA has a glitch in it in that you can't be a caregiver unless you are 21 years of age or older.
Right.
So what happens to a parent who is in a situation where they have a child that is in need of medical cannabis? Two doctors have signed off on it, and the state's prepared to qualify the patient, but the legal guardian is not of age, or the parent is not of age.
A huge problem. It dovetails from there, right? Not only is it a problem that if you're a 19-year-old mother of a very sick child, that you are unable to participate in the program in the way that was intended, but the other issue is, and especially before rec, it's that where do these caregivers get their marijuana? And that was always the problem. When Ryan was really high on oil, as far as dosing, we had to grow it all ourselves. I mean, we had no choice. And luckily, things have changed a bit. But especially back when it was just the MMMA, it was still unclear, at least not vetted in court in a meaningful way, whether a caregiver could transfer from another caregiver, from another patient. Like, where were we supposed to get this marijuana? And the parents and the children have always kind of been left at the wayside. And unfortunately, I feel like the MRTMA really kind of left the kids out too. And something I fought for quite hard on MI Legalize was to include the children. But unfortunately, it just didn't happen. And as the act becomes more and more eroded, it's going to impact them, I think, more excessively than it will folks that are over 21.
It's the door. If you can, just because I see my shirt up there.
Oh boy.
See it?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
There. Yeah.
Well, we have a client now that we're gonna handle this case for and see what the outcome is. I could tell you the 20 arguments that support why there should be relief from the ordinance itself for a lot of reasons, but just from a policy standpoint, it'd be really difficult if the American, judicial system's solution to this issue was she's got to give up her parental rights or something crazy like that, or that there isn't a way for the legal guardian to be able to find an exemption here.
It's a ridiculous argument. There's a really easy solution here.
Jim, I remember what I was going to say, and then we could probably take a break. But the point of this section 6 of the MMA that addresses all of this has always been the unequivocal evidence, because of its unequivocal statements of what the caregiver on behalf of the child is supposed to do. Acquire.
Yes.
So that means they're allowed to go out and get it. This is pre-legal dispensaries, right? Before.
That's right.
Okay, so it's implied that they're allowed to go and get from who?
Right.
It's going to have to be another caregiver, because we know that.
Well, that's not necessarily the way that we saw it.
Okay, but I think at least where we are right now, the caregiver sale to a patient, according to McQueen, would subject someone to losing their immunity, right? We know a patient-to-patient sale or transfer, they would arguably lose their immunity.
Yep.
But caregiver to caregiver, there's no ruling upon this. In fact, the argument here outlined in Section 6 gives some, like, if there isn't any discussion anywhere about what the interpretation is outside of the statements of, medical use, therein lies in Section 6 that the parent, legal guardian shall be the one and the only one in charge of acquisition, dosing, and now I do think that the concept of the caregiver encompasses all those things, as we learned in the Hartwick case, and where they describe that the caregiver is the one that assists in the idea of what is the appropriate amount of medical use, because there's no doctors that can really get involved.
I mean, of course they do, and
no, but I'm saying as opposed to the doctor. I'm saying that was a significant, for a long time, the courts would try to say, well, you got to get the doctor in here.
Doctor won't tell you.
Doctor's going to tell me exactly. What do you know? What do you know about cannabis, doctor? That's not the way it's supposed to be. Doctor's there to do the certification, and that's it. If they meet the qualifications, that's what they're doing. And that's how it's always been. And the frustration that the courts might have, or that the medical profession may have, in wanting to know more, or not wanting to be involved, or whatever it is, that's not what the law says. But I'm saying there's always this desire to want to get the doctor, the doctor in, when in fact the courts have unequivocally thrown that responsibility of what is the appropriate amount, What are the methods of ingestion? What are the
Yeah,
frequency of dosing?
Absolutely up to the caregiver.
Caregiver and the patient working
That's
right.
That's
And, whatever, the doctor
Yeah.
can add his 2
But
cents.
I
So-
just want to clarify though that we at least I certainly have always believed that as a caregiver you can get it anywhere. I can get it off Joe Bob on the corner. It doesn't matter. I can acquire it, and it's the same asymmetric protection that we see the patients get, right? And that was always the stance I think of most people, was that the patient could acquire it from anywhere.
Right. I agree with that. It's asymmetrical. The question is there immunity for the caregiver?
For the receiving caregiver?
No, the other side. If there's, is it symmetrical?
Right.
Is there now there is a case that supports this as well. It's the Manuel case. If anyone remembers, there was a portion of that. We can maybe read from it a little bit here, but if it's important, we want to keep talking about this. But the Manuel is the case that stands for the final. I mean, the first time the Court of Appeals had addressed the issue of usable marijuana, and as the Court of Appeals said in affirming the trial court's findings, that the word says dried, not drying, dried. It's a conclusion. Stop drying. And there was some riffraff of some other cases that came later, but I think at the end of the day, Manuel is the case that prevails on this issue. But along the way, Isidore Manuel's incident or the matter began with him purchasing plants. Someone brought plants to his house that he was buying. And upon the police finding their way there, I don't recall exactly, but they were there, and it was known.
Maybe they saw the plants waving in the wind.
It was known at the time that they were on scene. I don't think it was disputed that he was acquiring plants from another caregiver. And then there was some hanging marijuana that was there because he had just harvested, what have you. And the case turned on the hanging plants, dried, not dried, and usable, etc. And not once was the suggestion even implied that the transfer of the plants to the plants were in any way illegal or would be such that it burst the bubble of his immunity for the, wet marijuana that wasn't dried yet. But we can look at that again. So we were just talking about the caregiver thing. And I think also just to add to the caregiver's responsibilities and also their immunity, without batting an eyelash, other than an administrative rule, it was the MRA assumed this principle into its regulations, in that it allows a caregiver without even nothing was adjusted in the MMMA. If you think about it, like nothing in the MMA said, okay, now because we have the MMFLA,
Right.
the MMA allows caregivers to get in there and do their thing. That didn't happen.
Right.
There's no amendment that gives them buying power.
No.
They're allowed to acquire. In other words, they're allowed to go in and buy as much as they need for their. I mean, the within the limit, the limitations that they're allowed to acquire for their patients. That was a MRA administrative rule to the MMFLA. Nothing in the MMA was amended because it already existed. This permitted behavior allowed a caregiver to acquire.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's stated in the Section 6 for the parents, and a caregiver in Section 4 is allowed to engage in the medical use of cannabis, which includes the acquisition, transportation, manufacturing, cultivation, all those things. Does it say internal possession, Jim? Do you remember?
It does say something about that. About consuming it.
That's a good question. Now that we're just tossing things around, you think a caregiver can...
Consume, yeah, of course. What are they going to do? I mean, really? But we got to take a break.
All right, fine. If you want to do that right now, I think it's a good idea.
We got to. You're listening to Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
was upper middle class, I had a yard of carpet grass. Worked backhoe 9 to 5 and paid my union dues. But the chef came one day and he took it all away. Left me without anything to lose. They forfeited my car, they found some sugar in a jar. Told me it was probably suspicion of a crime. The other day I saw it being driven by the law, and them boys in back was gonna do some time. Forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play. Without a cotton picking thing to lose. I got the deep East Texas task force blues. They took my minibar and then they seized my VCR. They could be misused to watch a nasty video. They took away my kitchen all the time. My wife was bitching that it wasn't nothing but oregano. They said my herbal tea might cause a sinful ecstasy. Told me it could only lead to doing something hard. They took my ass to jail. They took my wife, paid my bail. Took my double wide down to the county yard. Forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play. Without a cotton picking thing to lose. I got the Oakland County task force blues. Without a cotton picking thing to lose. I got them Oakland County task force blues.
Nice.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news. Cajun moon, where does your power lie? As you move across the southern skies, you took my baby way too soon. What have you done, Cajun moon? Someday, baby, when you want your man and you find him gone, just like the wind, don't trouble your mind, whatever you do, 'cause Cajun moon took him from you. Cajun moon, where does your power lie? As you move across the southern skies, you took my baby way too soon. What have you done, Cajun moon? I hope y'all rocking with this. Hope y'all rocking with it at home too. At work, I hope you're listening to it. Stream it, share it live. Share it live. Share it live of that high obsession. Comes on, you can hear the sadness of this song. Don't you trouble your mind, whatever you do, 'cause he got me like he got you. Cajun moon, where does your power lie? As you move, hey, across the southern skies, you took my baby way too soon. What have you done, Cajun moon? Hey, Cajun moon, where does your power lie? As you move across the southern sky, you took my baby way too soon. What have you done, Cajun moon? What have you done? Cajun moon. You took my baby way too soon. Cajun moon, Cajun moon, Cajun moon. Where does your power lie? As you move across the southern sky, you took my baby way too soon. What have you done? Ooh, Cajun moon. You took my baby way too soon. Cajun moon, Cajun moon.
And now back to more Planet Green Trees.
of the delivery of marijuana to the public health care. All right, we're back.
Yeah, that's the way they're charging stuff. They're still going with the public health code.
Right. They're still using the old school laws to charge people with current crimes that don't exist.
Yeah. Disregarding the new act. That's what they're doing.
But if I order a T-shirt for $200 and it comes with a free ounce of pot, I'm okay with that. They're okay with that.
I don't know, but I'll say this: there's a tremendous lack of education, training, which is something I think it's fair to say was worthy of complaining about, and I know I complain about it a lot. If you're going to give the police community the benefit of the doubt, you're going to say, well, they didn't have a lot of training. Our leadership was not great because they never implemented the MMA. They never had training classes. They just created fear of the, clearing the smoke. Bill Schuette did a tour in 2011, 12, where we went around trying to educate everyone on how terrible marijuana was, cannabis. Nevertheless, all these terrible things, the forfeiture, all this stuff that went on, you can say, well, they didn't have any training and whatnot. So here we are in legalization phase, and I can promise you that the same question, if forced to be asked, officer, have you read the new recreational law?
Not at all.
You mean the whole thing? Yeah, the law that the citizens expect is going to protect them for their marijuana behavior. Do you know what it is? And I think you'd find over and over and over again that is not a thing that is known. They may read about it or hear about it, but they're not sending them back to training.
Generally, police don't read the laws. Their version of reading the law is whatever the MSP.
Sure, I got that.
And the MSP hasn't issued anything on the MMFLA yet.
You're right.
They haven't. And that's the thing. I mean, listen, I understand that you may or may not need a college education to become a police officer.
But you should have one, and you should have
of course,
extensive knowledge of the law.
The point is that when you're only required to read memos that come from some higher power, and that's how you're educated on an update of the law or of a new law, how can we expect to have any commonality across the board? I mean, these guys read this stuff, and it's to their own interpretation. And we see that a lot of them are saying, well, I still can charge under these other laws, and they're doing it.
Yeah, they do that. Most people, when they look at something, or if you come across something on your work and you're not sure how to do it, or you're unsure of what the policy or law is behind it, you might step away from it and think, you know what, I don't know what I got here. I'm sending this guy on his way. I'll go back and do some research and see where I stand on this so I can get better knowledge. But more in realistic terms is what your cop is going to do today is he's just going to guess on something that he can take you in for, and we'll just go with that.
Because there's no penalty if he's wrong.
No penalty.
And you know what? Generally, a prosecutor is going to sign off on whatever it is he did, and then the judge is going to condone that and whatever the prosecutor says. And I witnessed it today. Mike was on a Zoom court today, and you could just see how this judge just is partial to the system and the players in that system, meaning the police, the man from the Attorney General's office, and Michael was just a pile of shit in her court, and she could have cared less what he was saying, trying to make her aware of the law. So my point is you got, for lack of a better terms, the dumb cops who don't want to know the law to be better police officers. They just want to go out and make numbers and arrest people and hopefully get their next position on the narcotics team or whatever special assignment's coming up. And then they're blessed by this piss poor behavior and lack of knowledge of the law. They're condoned by the prosecutors who just go along with whatever it is they're due, and then the judges make up excuses for all of them and shit on defense. That is the realism of the system we are in today. Unfair.
And the worst part is the system isn't really the system, because I'll bet you those things aren't happening in Washtenaw County.
Surprisingly, there are a lot of issues with people needing letters
Yeah,
for their
that 15th
doctors.
District
and,
Court doesn't like to follow the law.
Yeah, they have been pretty more aggressive than.
But that's the court. What I'm saying is the prosecutor in Washtenaw County isn't taking a bunch of cases
Right.
that other places are still prosecuting.
And that's where
when it's not fair, when I cross from Wayne County into Washtenaw County on M14, I kind of there's a little sigh of relief because I know at this point, first of all, it's the Washtenaw County Jail, not the Wayne County Jail. Second of all, most likely the prosecutor has no interest in prosecuting any case he could make on me.
That's
So,
true. And that's that's the leadership that's needed around the whole country right now is more common sense prosecutors like Ellie Savitt. Because that's where it starts, with the leadership, judges, prosecutors, police chiefs. And the problems we have with leadership in law enforcement right now is most of your upper echelon, lieutenants and above, and most police, sheriffs, and state police agencies right now made their way by being the golden childs of the drug units.
That's right.
And that's how they got promoted. Like, I mean, I tell people all the time, I spent, a nice 4-year, section of my career in the detective bureau, and I took pride in handling most of the child abuse cases going on at that time, and went and got special training for that, wrote the policy for the department on proper investigation of child abuse cases. And, I mean, I got passed up in promotions, and the guy who's now the chief there, because why? He made a lot of marijuana arrests when he was a road officer, and he did time in the narcotics unit. And so that's who got promoted, and that's who gets promoted in all these agencies, are all these drug cops. So that's what you have in law enforcement leadership right now, and that's where we're going to have a hard time with any real reform, because these guys just have grown up in police work thinking that they can just do whatever the hell it is they want to do and get away with it, and the prosecutor and the judges are going to protect them. That's it in a summary. That's the tough road ahead of criminal justice reform in this country. And we still got a president who says we should just shoot him in the leg. I mean, that's where their head's at.
Shoot him in the leg.
Right. Talk about a lack of knowledge.
Right. These politicians have no idea.
No clue. And the reality of it is that it's going to take a generation or two to change law enforcement.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be the last ones to give up the ghost, as they always have been in every aspect of, life in this country. And I would like to say the fact that we're in a time and an era where the video abilities of everybody exist, that there's going to be a lot more stuff on TV and public that changes the game in our favor.
Yeah.
And it may not be dirty cops. It's not about people that are evil and murderers and shit like that. I'm not even talking about that.
No.
I'm talking about the everyday abuses. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do is watch a simple show called Cops. And all they did was show you the everyday militarization of the police department, how the new training has taught officers how to get people to resist, what resisting is and how to deal with it. And that show did nothing but show those things because it was all legal and it was allowed and it was department policy. And I can remember when the taser finally started to hit the market and people were talking how it was less than lethal force and how great it was, because now they could show up and if someone's out of control, they could tase them. Well, what do you want to tase anybody for? I mean, let's get them back in control or talk them down or something. They still had this mentality. Well, now we're seeing that change, and now departments are having to deal with things that are being done by other departments. And I think we're in a very interesting era, which, to Steve's point, is being controlled by these guys that came up through the system that we didn't care for. So now they're running the show, and the unions don't help either. That's another problem we have with police work. But I think society is going to force all that to change, and possibly quickly.
It could be quick. I don't know. But it could be a couple of generations till you really have an impact on the police culture. Because right now they're all trained to this. It's us versus them. I'm going home tonight, no matter what.
No matter what, right?
And I mean, that's I think it's okay to have a survival mindset, but they've kind of, they don't use their words. Like you said, talk somebody down. There's steps in the process of handling a situation where you can talk somebody down. There was a class that they were offering in-service training called verbal judo when I was coming up. And I know a few people that went to it. And I didn't go, but I looked through the materials and talked to those guys quite a bit about it. And I started using some of those tactics myself. And I tell you what, you can de-escalate a situation with your words. When you're in that uniform, you're a powerful person. You're this powerful authority person in these people's lives. And if you can talk to them calmly, sensibly, and, a lot of times you can bring calm to a situation just as quickly as these officers ignite situations that we see on video all the time. And
right. I like to point out that only police officers are allowed to use a handgun as a tool of submission. So, to de-escalate something, I would think that everybody would want to have holstered weapons. Obviously, for safety reasons, we have to consider the officer's safety first. But I like to point out that, a lot of people are triggered by stuff like that, and society doesn't necessarily get that. And the more we can do to not have, and most people don't understand that the average, like 80% of police officers never fire their weapon, and most never really draw it for any other reason than that tool of submission.
Right.
It's interesting because as someone that was trained to carry a handgun, I was trained that the only time my gun would come out of my holster was to pull the trigger.
That's right.
And I always laughed because police officers didn't have to wait. They didn't have to fear for their life before they could pull their weapon out.
No,
and,
you're right on there.
That changes. That definitely changes society too, because, and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people that when nervous, they pull out their weapon and wait, but those are the people that generally survive those situations. The concept that, you can hold someone at gunpoint is a television thing. Anybody that's gone through any gun safety course learns that quickly. But for the police, it's totally different. And I think that gives them a different mentality and everything.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which in some places and sometimes may be needed. But, we're definitely entering in a different era.
Yeah. And until somebody makes a declaration to the end of the war on drugs, we are going to have problems in the criminal justice system and problems with the police. Period.
Well,
so until these politicians figure that out and get some balls and come out and say, you know what, this hasn't worked. It hasn't been working. Instead of taking these tiny little baby steps towards it, let's end it, because it doesn't make sense and most people know that. Right. So if we could have a leader, a politician, put it, like the president, it would have to come from the highest executive branch. Today, I declare an end to the war on drugs. And start moving things in that direction. I know there's still problems with the Controlled Substances Act, and it really is going to take an act of Congress to put a final end to this thing. But the executive branch, I think,
he could abolish the DEA tomorrow.
Yes, he could.
Right. And part of the problem is, though, and I can't believe I'm really going to say this. So who would handle the problems at a legitimate pharmacy? where diversion takes place, or theft, or we're not talking about possession or anything like that. We're talking about other crimes that are associated.
If those drugs are legal, though, Adam, don't you think that those sorts of crimes they end up decreasing at an exponential rate because people have access to the drugs just legally?
And I'll tell you what, I went to Mexico several years ago. Went over the border to from El Paso into Juarez, and hung out the day. And we went into the pharmacy there, and you don't need a prescription. And you can get whatever the hell you want, hydrocodone, whatever, steroids, whatever, you know.
Yep.
I was into bodybuilding at the time. I'm looking at my 13-year-old nephew, and I'm like, maybe if you had my 13-year-old nephew smuggle the steroids across. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I was like, you know, and there's not like lines up around, you know, out of the store to get in there. It was like any other pharmacy here. You walk in, it's not a big deal. My sister would get prescriptions there, like inhalers and stuff for my nephew, and it was cheaper.
Well, yeah, no, the problem is this. The problem is that you're never going to convince the government types or the DEA types that these other associated problems shouldn't be in their wheelhouse. That, you know, yes, use will go down. People won't be stealing from pharmacies if they can just go buy it, things like that. But at the same time, these guys aren't going to give up that ghost because they see that as not necessarily a war on drugs problem, but they see that as part of their
regulatory scheme.
Correct. That's what they deal with, you know. I was fascinated that at the time of one of my raids, they went nuts about a little weed in the house, but they took 5,000 methadone tablets and pushed them to the side because they had a prescription label on them with my name on it. Mind you, you can't own 5,000 tablets. That's against all kinds of laws. But they didn't care that I had way more than you could possibly have.
No, they had your name on it, an official prescription sticker.
That's all they cared about.
That's all they need, dude. That's good.
You know, which just goes to show, because in a different type of situation, they might not care. They might look at that and say, dude, we don't know how you got this, why you have this. And of course, you're obviously doing something other than taking it. So, you know, we're going to go after you for these crimes. But they don't. They play their games.
Right.
And that's the unknown thing that keeps guys like Michael in business, because you never know what they're going to come after people, even though the law seems to have changed.
Right.
You know? And then you got places that are trying to change the law on people, local ordinances and things of that nature. And there are people who don't understand that they should probably check their local ordinance. So they decide to put a nice little grow outside. And all of a sudden they've got problems because they live in some podunk town that didn't understand what they were doing when they wrote some local ordinance. So
that's a lot of government in politics, is they don't understand what they're doing. They just do it because they think they should do it. I mean, the one recent legislation that was proposed by one of the Lansing politicians coming from Grand Rapids every day is, oh, I'm seeing all these marijuana billboards from Grand Rapids to Lansing every day. Something needs to be done about that, because these cushy punch ones are definitely targeting children. And I'm like, I mean, the world's about to collapse around us. And they're worried about legislating piss, billboards, and Delta 8 THC from hemp.
Yeah.
But they want to regulate something that here's what I don't understand. I understand not selling to children. I get that concept. But if you have a law in place that says you can't sell to children, and if you have regulations in place that say you have to be over 21 to get inside, and if you have I mean, I grew up working as a bouncer in the bar business. We never worried about teenagers coming in because we had doormen, and they checked IDs. And you know, you might be able to beat us at it once in a while, but the reality was that's not something we worried about because we knew we were safe and secure. So if you think that these products are being marketed to children, what does that mean? That children are waiting, like standing outside looking at their watch? Man, I'm going to be 21 tomorrow. I can get in at 10 o'clock and I can finally buy this cushy punch that I've seen advertised for the last 3 years on the billboard, but I wasn't old enough to go buy it. I mean,
but that's
it's ridiculous.
That is the way they think. So she's took it upon herself from seeing these billboards to enabling trying to get past some legislation. I mean, that's how we. I mean, you didn't hear anything from your constituents. You didn't hear, you just came up with this all on your own, and now they're voting on it.
Well, when I heard that, I right away figured that the billboard lobby is large enough that this shouldn't be an issue. And I would also think that the price of political billboards, if this passes, would go up exponentially in order to make up for lost revenue.
Good point.
On the weed game. I mean, I don't get this at all. I see these ads and I know what they are right away because I'm part of the culture. But most of them there's no concept. I mean, you have no idea what they're talking about, what they're trying to sell.
Right, unless unless you're part of the culture.
Right, and even if you could use kid figures and, like the concept that the gummy bear is not allowed because it's a gummy bear. But the vitamins that you give to your kids are gummy bears. So it's allowed to be used in that aspect, a regulated form. But we can't package it in a package. They never worry about the kids buying dildos and shit at the sex store. And I know that because I used to run one of those too. The cops never come by and say, listen, we found this new packaged dildo in this 16-year-old's bag. It had a receipt from your store. They never do that. But at the same time, most parents aren't afraid that their kid's going to find their sex toys either. But they hide their weed. Think about it. The whole,
we're all mixed up.
Right.
Oh.
But the politicians are clueless. That's the problem. They're we've been dealing with misinformation for the last 80 years and 90 years of the war on drugs. Now, not only do we have people that are misinformed, but they're ill-informed.
In my public administration program at Eastern, we were dealing with the administrative aspects, the administrative state, and how the administrators, I was learning to be a government administrator, and we referred to the politicians as the political actors, because that's what they are. They're just actors and actresses, and they playing their roles on TV for us every day. And so Nancy Pelosi ought to get a couple of Golden Globes.
All right, Steve, how long did you have to go to school to become a certified police officer?
It was 4 months.
4 months, your Malazzi training, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know how long politicians go to school to learn to become politicians?
0.
2 years.
No. There's 1 week before the session opens.
That's okay. They do
that. They all show up, and the newbies or whatever the hell they call themselves, they learn, where the bathrooms are and how to get from their office to the, floor. And I'm sure now they're taught that when the alarm goes off, here's where you run and hide.
Yeah.
You never know when the people are going to come for you now. This is the modern era. And when you see them pitchforks and them torches, boy, this is the hallway you want to run to. So, they get a week and then they're supposed to know how to be politicians, which is why the ones that are not politicians are generally the best. But they learn quickly that they have to step in line or they won't get the committee assignments or the money donations or, I got friends that became politicians and they're politicians. That's all. I mean, they're still friends, but they became one of them. They had to. That's the only way to survive. Because they want to go home at night too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, by the way, because I don't carry a gun and I don't have to announce that when I get pulled over, the first thing out of my mouth is, "Officer, we are both going home tonight." And that causes more concern than anything. I just wanted to
It
say
probably does. That's what I was thinking.
that. You know, the license plate's registered to a woman. I'm a man. You know.
Yeah. A lot of
And then
red flags going off.
Oh, not yet. Not yet. Those are just like some warning flags, yellow. Then they take the driver's license back to the car and they type that number in. Then the red flags go on.
Yeah, that's right.
This
So-
this guy on totally unrelated to the politicians, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. This guy that is on my social media, he just got this bag of dicks.
Oh.
And he's been sticking them
dick
on
bag.
people's cars.
Oh my gosh.
And like, you
A
know,
random
it's
dicking.
yeah, and so when you were talking about that, it brought me to thinking about how he just stuck one on this guy's visor, like, you know, his rear mirror, and then it was his friend. He pranked him, you know. And then the website is literally bagadicks.com.
Oh my.
So he bought a bag of dicks and goes smacking it on people's cars and stuff?
Yeah, suction cup. It was not
Wow.
like, I mean, it was just
The
like,
bag of suction cup dicks.
Yeah,
That's
bag
a
of dicks.
copy of the Randy.
Reminds me of the
by
police departments.
Gerald Blazlowski in the South Park episode goes on, you know, his whole social media thing. He's drawing dicks on everyone's face and stuff like that, and to create controversy. You know, that's that whole.
Wasn't there a Trailer Park Boys
No.
that Ricky kept drawing the dicks on trailers and stuff?
Yeah. No, that was the Cyrus episode.
Yes.
Leahy and Randy drew the dick and put Cyrus on the dick and said "Bye, Randy."
That's
Or not by Randy, but by Ricky. By Ricky.
That's right. Good recall. on
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, it's a good episode.
I just want to say that you all think it's funny until someone draws a dick on you.
Yeah,
That is why you don't
You
fall
are
asleep
correct, sir.
first.
that's right.
Dude, I got photos. I quit drinking because of that.
Yeah, that'll get you.
Yeah, I'm glad
Oh,
I
yeah.
quit drinking because of that.
Yeah. Well,
Can I explore something else we were kind of getting close to there, which I think was as I often reference to some of the truths that have been exposed in the world, they can see them coming out of the South Park cartoon, and one of them was kind of this interesting where they framed this issue of bullying online and the whole troll community and who they are. You know, like they had a whole bunch of cast of characters and to give the reasons why people act that way, and you know, some of them take vigilance in it. Like there's like like, yeah, we got to do this. You know, it's like we're the only ones left that can really, stir it up on whatever. Like the trolling is like a thing. It's like, I mean, you know what I'm saying, Jim? There's like a
There's
whole
a culture of
there's a
trolls.
culture of trolls, and they kind of
Oh,
like.
yeah.
But anyway, so while all this is going on, what is it? The Dutch? Is it the Dutch? I don't know. So one country, and I noticed that Adam's photo looks like he's in Amsterdam, but.
Oh yeah, that's the monument visor across from the greenhouse. Let me get out of the way.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I can talk about it later if you want. There's an interesting story.
I do want to hear, but so here's the dilemma. I thought it was. So what they do is they have some kind of powerful machine that they've created. Of course, it's all cartoon stuff, but it allows you to type in a person's name into your browser, and it'll tell you all their searches that they've ever done. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So. It's like an interesting. So like I don't know what couple of the wives. One of the wives shows up at the house, says, "Oh my God, I did. Now that you can do this, I typed the name in and I saw this stuff. It's terrible. Sheila, aren't you going to do it for your husband?" She's like, "Nah, I don't really care." But it's just kind of interesting the way different relationships would go crazy over something like that, whatever they're doing, and some don't even care. Like, yeah, whatever, he does whatever he wants. And that was just an interesting point of like how crazy that would be if it really happened.
Yeah.
But
Well, it does happen. I mean, I know people that live that lifestyle.
But I'm saying the ability of anybody to check where you've been.
Check your searches.
Yeah, just
I think that's totally not
What?
cool.
As
No,
long
of
as you-
course.
I
if you
don't
work at
think
Google,
I mean, just from a
Okay.
privacy standpoint, of
Yeah.
course, they don't
I
want to
mean-
hide anything. But
Makes me
It's
glad
not
my
the
name's
hiding
Steve
thing.
Miller.
It's the thing where it's just not
All right.
the business of anybody.
there's private browsing. Everybody knows how to do that, right?
Yeah.
That does- I
But
don't-
assuming somebody somewhere can see everything I do.
Yeah.
I search some of the most obscene, obscure, objective, offensive. If it comes through my head, I see what Google has to say because, it's the most awesome thing is to type something into Google and get a 0 response. If you can get a 1, that's amazing. Where like there's 1 entry, but I'm not worried that somebody's going to see that I Google search something. Now, the truth is the government has acquired all my electronics at one point, and I'm sure somebody saw all the browser histories that were loaded in those machines. And, whatever, I'll get through it.
They sap it all out of Facebook now. That's what they do.
I think it's fair to say everyone's data has been compromised in some way,
Yes.
whether we know it or not.
Yes.
And it's
Some
not so
more
much.
than others.
Right. It's not that it's not so much that it has been compromised. It's a question of will there be any use for it? Will
That's
it will
what
it be?
I try to prove, right? That's what I
Well,
try to prove. is
What do you mean?
What will they know
There's-
that they found out?
There's always a use for that. data.
Potentially.
Why do you think they don't want you to
Potentially.
have signal?
Oh, there is. Trust me.
Well,
I'm saying as we speak right
then
now,
all the
the
metadata
amount
that
of data.
surrounds that
Right, that's what I'm saying.
data.
Well, first of all, the data is sold and used as a commodity, right? They
Yes.
want to know
Correct.
where you're clicking on Facebook. We joke.
they
We
can
joke
sell
here.
you shit.
We joke here. We have a conversation
Amazon.
about bike gear.
Yeah.
And then the
And
first
it's in your search.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
that's
like
not an accident.
Alexa.
it is not an accident. There's
Siri.
no question about it. But the idea of our phones triggering where we are in close proximity to products that we may buy is part of our
Well, that's where we're at.
That's
And
where it's at.
And
and
here's
they
the
have
thing.
those on the phones. You know, that like with the cookies,
Right.
Yes.
jump to your phone.
Yeah.
All right. So you have that. But the other question I'm asking is, even if, that's one thing. That's for commercial. I'm not saying it's okay. None of this is okay. We're describing it and breaking it down. That's buying habits. You're going to a site, for example, where you are clicking probably that the cookies are okay, and no one reads the fucking,
Yeah. Who doesn't like cookies?
Yeah, it
Right.
sounds delicious.
And with that, they get the information. They probably drop a cookie in your thing.
Yeah, a
your
little
phone's
cookie
got one.
here, cookie
You're going here. They
there.
know where you are. You're pulling into something. You get a fucking, it's.
Here, you want a cookie?
You can check on Amazon. Here,
want
suggested
more
products.
cookies.
Yeah,
It's
have
right
a
here.
cookie.
Turn to your left.
Yeah.
And so they've got it honed in like that.
But who
There's no
doesn't
question.
like that
They've been building this for
convenience?
years.
Yeah, right.
Like the people in this industry will tell you.
This is
that-
nothing new.
No, I know that, but it's so much more sophisticated now. There's so many
Because
news.
they have all your data.
Because there's so many news sources that people are just giving up their data. But the science of it is that they can actually, they know what you're going to buy before you're going to buy it.
Damn
to a
right
certain
they
degree.
do.
Okay, that's for commerce. Now the other stuff we're talking about, which is what? What else is? What else is our communications about if it's not about commerce? Maybe private information. People may be, what stuff that no one else should know. Government does no business. It may
Well,
be.
medical information is the new thing that's online. Everybody has an app to their medical network, their doctor, or whatever. And
Medical records are a big deal too.
right, and
Yeah,
medical
they
records
are.
are now available via the internet to most patients. So I would think that acquiring that data and hacking that data is going to be one of the new frontiers.
Well, it's interesting because there's an obligation of these hospitals to be able to protect it if they're going to put it on there, right? And take some
Right.
steps.
Well, but they do.
Okay.
They do. But I can tell you, all you have to do is go to the Office of Civil Rights website and look at their breach list. Then those
Right.
are all the reported breaches in the United States, and you'll see some big names on this. No one is immune to this shit.
No question about it. Listen, if they hacked into this pipeline over here,
Yeah.
who knew? It's a good time to be in the
It happened.
internet
but
security business, right? Because this is a real
Yeah.
like this is where it's at. Like these guys are doing these.
We are at war, and we
malware-
are losing.
No, it's what do they call it? It's called. It's like ransom malware.
Yeah.
Right, which is like they
So-
shut your shit down and make you pay to open it back up.
Right.
But that's nothing new. They
Okay.
did that to a couple cities in
Yeah.
the past.
It happens
Actual
all the
city
time.
I got
government.
it. I got it. All right, so
and some of them have paid.
Yeah.
sure. The question is,
And that's what happened here, by the way.
The question is all the other emails, all the other communications. Let's say everyone on Safe Mish that sent an email, all that data is somewhere in a category somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, but so what? Where I'm looking at it, you're looking. I'm just saying, for sake of argument, I'm looking at it, you're looking at it. I don't think anyone's encouraging.
Some people.
You want to know what it's about?
Listen, I don't think they have a right to see it.
No.
But the idea is of the right to privacy. Like if one of the people on the site there was in fact a DEA agent, let's just say someone infiltrated that. You think that that's going to stop them from getting that information?
No, of
like
course
it's
not.
and I'm not saying because there's a fallacy to a lot of things that people think sometimes that they have a certain interest in their privacy when in fact they've already relinquished their rights to it. For example, DTE records. Bank records.
Yes.
People are getting those things all the time because you even though you think no one should know my banking information,
You don't read the agreement.
it's not just that. It's that why do you think you have a right to privacy of that?
Right.
You're
Right.
giving some third party. That's not privacy. You're letting someone else. Any random Momo can look at your account on the. That's not privacy. So we have to pull it back and really think about what it is what privacy means, And you're the one putting it out there. Most of the time people are putting that shit out there. You send an email to someone. Is it expected that it's only going to go? No, you better expect the whole fucking public's going to see it. And you can't stop anyone from making it public. Technically, right?
Well,
But privacy is a right you have.
Yes,
Just like the First Amendment is a right.
Okay, but you have a
Now,
right.
Hold on. If you put here's my point, and I think you and I agree, Michael. If you put something out there, it's no longer private. Now, you and I, Michael, if I come to your office and I speak to you on a business issue, you and I are protected by some canons of your industry.
That's correct.
It takes the privacy that I gave up, and it protects it.
That's right.
Now, nowhere else am I guaranteed that. Even with my doctor, I enter into an agreement that says he has the right to use my information, put it into an online app, which then he can only protect so much. Now, he may have a duty to secure it, but we all see the reality, as Jim mentioned, that there's all kinds of breaches. So,
but he can't give it out. He or she can't get it out. We would say, right? Because the HIPAA laws would prevent that.
They not only cannot give it out, but they have to take all of these different precautions to protect it.
That's another area where I'm saying that industry regulates the same, similar to the way
and
that.
Rightfully so. Those records,
sure.
There is no easier source for someone to just replicate your identity than through your medical records.
And it doesn't mean that just because we're saying HIPAA laws, they don't protect against, they certainly are not a barrier for malware or ransomware.
No,
of course not.
And these ransomware attacks, the number one point of entry for these attacks is through people's email. And what simply happens is someone gets an email and they're tricked into clicking on a link, and boom.
Yeah.
And the problem is that I see online that everybody's, the pipeline didn't do this and the pipeline didn't do that. Well, I can tell you from someone that knows that we haven't given people enough time to figure out who knew what. There has to be an entire incident investigation done to figure out what the hell happened. And more than likely, if history teaches us anything, they probably took all of these different sorts of precautions, and unfortunately, someone clicked a link.
Well, but
Jim's
see, here's
the
the
internet
thing.
police too.
The other thing that we know now is that companies know when they're under attack. And what happened with this pipeline is once the company knew it was under attack, it immediately shut itself down. And that's something that didn't used to be able to happen, that these companies would be infected before they figured it out. Now they know that it's coming and they can shut down the access point. So I was listening to a interview, and the company, for instance, shut down its billing department right away because they were afraid if their billing software got hacked, they wouldn't be able to collect their money.
Sure.
Which makes sense. But at the same time, that also meant that they couldn't deliver anything either.
Right.
Mr.
We were talking about, though, I do think that we can come back to this. When we talk about, right, privacy is a right. We have a right to privacy. However, you should define what that means. If someone's...
Well, you give it up is the problem.
Right. I think that a good way to describe, for legally speaking, do you have like a reasonable belief that your items are private? Like, for example, a trash pull. Great example. When you put your trash out onto the curb for the public to see, it's no longer private. You're putting it out because someone else could take. That's a good example. In a good, really metaphorically speaking, when you go on Facebook, you're putting yourself out there in the trash.
Yep.
People can do whatever they want with it.
That's why you should never believe anything you read on the internet. I tell my mother that all the time. She sees a Facebook post and she calls me. She don't call me for nothing else, mind you. But she calls me. She says, hey, what's going on? I see you posted, whatever. And I'm like, Ma, don't believe what you read on the internet.
It's good. It's good that she's.
know.
It's good that she's calling you because for the truth at least. She's calling you to figure it out. But
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we have Eric Gunnels in here. I think showed up to try to defend. Where'd he go? He's going to defend the Flushing ordinance. I think he had something to do with it. He's on some board, I was told. And Eric, come back. We're not waiting for you.
There we go.
There he is.
All right. He looks like he's at the Cougar Cabin. What is that thing called?
Are you at the
Cougar
the Wildcat?
Yeah, the Wildcat Club. Right.
Looks like he's at
We can't. We even
there you
have
go.
the deer head.
The Cougar Killing Zone there.
You're on mute.
Yeah, unmute. If you
Yeah,
can.
unmute.
All right, so Eric,
There.
this is what I understand, that we were reading the thing about the Flushing ordinance. I mean, remember when we did that thing with the Komorn law did the interlocal agreement challenge to the FANG and all of that? I think those guys were somehow our plaintiffs on a forfeiture thing, whatever. But some kind of crazy, I don't know what's going on there. They're making the MMA, it sounds like, Eric, into a commercialized law. That they're doing home occupation law writings. That they're looking at the MMA, which is not a business, not intended to be as such. And because of that premise, they seem to be legislating it as a home occupied business. Now, I say all that because whether it's good or bad, Genesee County has been one of the few counties that has been able to proclaim some kind of green zone status. Fewer, not none, but certainly less police interdiction over the years than. Although I got a lot of cases. It's hard for me to say that, but I think just generally speaking, compared to like Oakland County or Macomb County, probably. And but so, what do you say to all this, Eric? How did this end up that what once was perceived as a pro caregiver community now making some really bad decisions? And why are you responsible for this, Eric? You're gonna have to defend yourself. Go ahead.
Can you guys hear me good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Is the sound echoing when you guys talk?
No.
All right.
Do you have your computer audio on?
Yes, but I'm not wearing headphones, so that's what I was asking.
Is there a double echo over there?
No.
No. It sounds fine.
No, I'm asking Eric. Are you hearing it? Yeah, we're fine. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Good. So, yeah, basically.
Flushing's your fault. Let's get to that. Come on, let's go.
Oh, yeah. I'm not really at fault.
Well, you're a legislator. You're a legislature.
Let's look at what the big picture is here.
Politician talk. Go ahead.
Are we doing
Here we go.
picture?
Look. There are growing pains to legalization.
That's such
folks.
shit. Go ahead.
Oh boy.
Okay. Let me give you this. Okay. Here's the most.
You voted for this. Are you saying? Did you vote for this?
Serious
No,
right
no.
now?
You voted for this. You're part of the
No.
You're on the committee.
Hear me out.
You're on the committee.
Oh my
Hear me out.
gosh, Eric,
Hear me out.
come on.
I would
Come
rather.
on.
Okay. The language that Flushing has.
Right now, I feel like I'm Rand Paul and you are Fauci. But keep going.
Okay. Right.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, Flushing's ordinance is certainly too restrictive, and I don't like the fact that they're trying to regulate it like a business when, in fact, we've been told for the last 12 years that it's not a business. So, if you're going to regulate it like a business, the question then that comes up is, well, Hell, we sure the hell, if it's a business, we sure the hell ain't talking about 5 customers and just 72 plants. Okay. So that then, that threat comes to the table with every single caregiver there that's having this discussion with their local elected officials. Like, yeah, you want to call it a business? Fine. We'll call it a business. But we sure aren't limiting people to 5 customers. You wouldn't do that with any other business. So if you can't pay tax on this, well, then you can't pay tax on it. It's not a business. But if you can pay tax on it, well, then let's have a talk about that. And let's have a talk about regulating, caregivers and all this and that on a positive note to get to become a part of the taxation process.
Whose idea is this, by the way? Did you come up with this? Because I gotta.
No, I did not. This is
right.
This is something done by Row Engineering, and this is obviously done in response to the recent Court of Appeals decision. I mean, the Supreme Court decision plus the Court of Appeals decision reversing itself. What's the DeRuyter? Yes,
all right.
DeRuyter.
Okay, first of all,
this is in response to DeRuyter. But let me.
Well, the attempt to regulate caregivers has been a response all over the place, but this discussion in the way you're framing it, I understand. But let's talk about some of the ideas that you're describing. One is that for X amount of years they don't call it a business. This is a home occupation thing. And if you're going to call it a business and regulate it as such as a home occupation, then let them pay taxes and let them sell to more than 5 patients and have more than what, right? That's what you're saying. So what you're proposing is, an expansion to the MMA at the local level, which is in direct conflict and competes with the very nature and purpose of the MMFLA. You're going to be giving licenses to people that aren't paying taxes or can't, maybe they're going to try to pay taxes. I don't know how that works under the state law. And they're also going to be setting them, this is almost like, it sounds like to me, I'm reminded of all of the places that, and many, unfortunately, that we represented, of retail places that were open because the local city said, oh, yeah, come on, let's do this. And it was in direct conflict with what we would later learn to be the interpretation of the state. And some places survived and remained open.
Yeah.
Well, and some didn't. And Eric, if there is any guaranteed enforcement in the era that we're in, and I'm not saying there isn't still some enforcement or in old laws, but the one thing that I think is clear is that retail or commercial non-state licensed actors, you might as well walk around with a target on your back that you're doing some marijuana illegality. Yeah. In fact, the whole justification there was in Wayne County, I know of a horrific story that some young kid sold a bag of marijuana to somebody for $40, got charged with delivery under the public health code, as if the idea that when there's remuneration involved, you drop back into the public health code. I disagree with this interpretation. I think it could be avoided as even a plausibility, but the behavior you're describing, Eric, in a way, if this thing happens, really creates, first of all, a huge target, especially if people are buying into it. People, like if they think, oh, yeah, the city said it's okay and we got guarantees into the state police come in. And trust me, they have an enforcement team for this exact reason. They're an enforcement team on steroids now, I would say. They've gotten their money. When they start giving money to the cities for tax revenue, they've already eaten. Their plate is full, and they got some storage in the cupboard. You know what I mean? They don't. You know what I mean? If it gets to that point, so they're fully, full strength, full rostered enforcement team out looking for non-licensed players. I don't know. Do you feel me on this? Am I just?
I
feel you.
I follow you 100%, Michael, on this. I get what you're saying.
The only solution is they have to repeal the public health code.
They need to unschedule marijuana. If they unschedule marijuana, then none of this would matter.
Unschedule marijuana, and then we're done.
Right. But then again, Adam, you got to think too that like even when it comes to local ordinances, I know we passed Prop 1, folks. I get that. But local ordinances and local police, they still have power and authority that you can't even imagine. And I know that everyone wants to say, oh, hey, we passed the state law. Your local township can't do anything. Honestly, that's bullshit. Your local township, if they have laws in the books, they can and will enforce them. Okay.
Until such time, well, now you've got a standing.
Right,
now you've got a player that's got standing. and they can challenge it for certain reasons if it's conflict.
What we have is a consistent inconsistency of laws, and just like our Steve Miller over there just mentioned, you're right. We've got to focus on repealing the old laws now. And I'll give you a case in point example. My township just repealed. Remember, I was on here a month or two ago, and we talked about that. My township had that immorals clause. We just appealed that. We repealed that Tuesday night. It's gone. Okay, so there is no more local, laws against marijuana anymore, and that's going to happen like a domino effect.
Yeah, but you still have sodomy is against the law, Eric. If that's what I understand.
Right, and then nobody's out there enforcing that because no one's.
Oh, that's what you say, but blah 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 blah.
Sure.
Huh.
Right,
Did you turn yourself in for that behavior, by the way? Just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus, Michael.
There's no sacred ground.
All
here.
of a sudden, that's not fine. Wait a second. What sacred ground?
Wait, hey, Michael, does it come with like a $5 ticket, like the pot did in Ann Arbor? I'd take one of those tickets. I'd be all right with that. No problem.
Little $5
Would you
sodomy
represent
ticket.
me, Michael, on the sodomy charge?
Is only if I can,
As long as it's consensual, I have no problem with that.
All right.
Look, I mean, you've got state and local conflicting laws. Now you've got a state law that says marijuana is not a business.
State law. Wait.
Business.
We can't accept the premise that we need to talk beyond the idea that state and local laws are in conflict. There's an answer to that. If the state law protects it and the city tries to prohibit it, guess who wins?
The state.
Yes.
But now, what about DeRuyter? And what about DeRuyter saying that now a township can say or classify this as a home-based occupation?
Right. Then it should be in the home.
Okay. But
so
then
Michigan has home-based business law. If this is a home-based business, then it belongs in the home.
Okay. Well,
if it's a commercial business, then it belongs in a commercial zone.
Okay.
Exactly.
But then does Flushing Township have the right to say things like, oh, you can't grow in your basement, or you can't grow in an outbuilding, or you can't go outside?
Per DeRuyter, they
you can't grow marijuana, or you can't grow.
They're saying you can't grow medical marijuana.
What about hemp?
or recreational marijuana.
So I can grow tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
That's state law in
hemp?
conflict with higher court decisions.
Let me say a couple things.
In conflict with something else. There's so many conflicts within that triangle there.
Hold on.
I mean, look,
Eric.
Someone's going to be the first test case. I can tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. And I guarantee you guys, it will be a test case out of Genesee County, because the caregiver system in Genesee County is way too strong. It's way too strong. People that have been doing this caregiver thing in Genesee County for way too long. It is. We've been having caregiver union meetings every week now for the past 4 weeks. I can promise you, somebody is going to take their township to the Supreme Court.
All right, that's something different. Okay, we're talking because listen, this is the answer to your question, Eric. The ideas that were so you understand we have this scenario where Tierbeck versus Wyoming. I think we have a picture at Hash Bash with him, right? Remember that, Eric? Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. So his case said that a local law that prohibits caregiving because of federal law, being that the ordinance reads no activity that's against local, state, or federal law, was found to be a violative ordinance because it conflicted with state law, and that idea that the MMMA could be prohibited because against federal law was analyzed, and it was deemed that the federal controlled substance does not preempt the MMMA. The two can exist and coexist. If you're in state court, you get the protection of the MMMA. If you are in federal court, you've got nothing. Just like if you were charged with a ticket, you're entitled in any district court anywhere under a local ordinance. You're not precluded from asserting the state defenses. Whatever defenses exist under state law. And all right, so with that being said, let me go on and say this. Then we have so at the end of the Tierbeck case, there was a paragraph. I think it's like a footnote 9 or something, and I always it was the like hanging on by a thread that didn't completely eliminate the cities and townships' ability to regulate medical marijuana behavior. And I used the visual, and none of this happened, but to explain what it meant, it seemed like it went like this, that the judges were issuing their opinion from the bench. The lawyers for Tierbeck were on one side. I'm trying to think, I think it was Bruce Block, and I think the guys from the ACLU picked up at the Supreme Court. And the other side was the city attorney for the city of Wyoming. And before the Supreme Court, and it didn't happen this way, but they made their arguments. But let's just say the court was rendering the opinion, and it's like, it's all good, Tierbeck, good news. They can't do this. You win, and you're going to win, and they can't stop you, and there's nothing they can do. And then they throw in there this footnote, as the city attorney falls to the ground, is pissed off, crying, making a tantrum. The court says, well, okay, we'll give you footnote 9 here, which is, the cities can still regulate the things that cities generally do, which I see as being for businesses that someone needs to apply for in the traditional sense to get a occupancy permit, to pay get some kind of approval for an inspection, to get just that, just what a city would do to make sure that your building or commercial purposes are safe. Now, there may be some other things, and other cities have regulations about rental properties. You got to get an annual inspection or get a permit or something to rent. There's other kinds of rules locally. But when we sat at that moment and said, what could a city do to regulate caregivers that's within their normal regulatory power that doesn't directly conflict with the MMA? What could exist here in from paragraph 9 that if you could just fantasize or sadistically think of things that may be and fall in this category? Well, anything requiring reporting would seem to be off the table, right? Because that involves the disclosure of information. If the MMA protects you from local knowledge of or needing to report that because the state registry is private, how could they ever force a caregiver patient to tell them anything? It seems to be like, so any ordinance that begins, that to me was the end all of end alls. Now they may, and all this stuff that we're talking about here is, if it's in direct conflict with the MMA, Eric, that's the answer. They can legislate all they want. There's the problem that the state is. Okay. Let me finish. Eric, let me finish. Let me give you the exact answer to what you're talking about. Every single different community that is taking action here to try to regulate this has been waiting to do this since the Tierbeck case, which is probably 2012. Yep. My first response to that is, why the fuck haven't they gotten over it yet? Whatever that dispute was, you lost so badly the last time, and over all this time, you're telling me you're living with anger and you want to start doing stuff? Give it up already. All right, but here they are taking actions and picking little spots where they think they can do things. And the problem is that every little single town that's got a lot of caregivers in it is writing their own stupid legislation. It's not a statewide, we're going to do, all those cities are going to do this. Every one of them's coming with more stupid stuff individually. So what you have to do, Eric, is you got to get the caregiver groups together. They got to get some money together, and they got to sue to stop the ordinances that are interfering with the basic rights of the ballot initiative of the MMA of 2008. Do you see what I'm saying? But the problem is that it's so spread out. It's so spread out in all these little minor areas that they're just doing whatever they want, and they're going to do it and write it whatever way they think they can until someone tells them no. Right. And the problem is that you're going to have. There's 83 counties and hundreds of cities in each of them, 50 cities, 25 in each of them. That's a lot of little jurisdictions that are going to try to do this. See what I'm saying? So if you have a unionized caregivers that have a reason to not want to have all of those basic fundamental rights imposed upon them, and it's taking place with these local ordinances, there's legal action to be taken.
Yep. They're
spending a lot of time on it. That was bothersome to me, and they're also giving the impression that they're cooperating. I saw some of the quotes in the newspaper that they want them to take it back to the, consulting committee or whatever, whoever's making those decisions.
And there's two things here. I mean, one clearly is the issue at hand where you have the state and the local conflict. Look, I think from a political standpoint of view, the discrepancy here is in the terminology regulate versus restrict. Now, when one local community hears the word regulate, they think the word restrict. They think, oh, we can restrict that now. Now, from my standpoint of view, I know that what Terbeek says, it cannot be restricted, and you cannot restrict the act to make it inoperable. Okay, it be liberally interpreted to effectuate its purpose. But furthermore, so on one hand, I look at this as you can regulate, but regulate means that you can regulate on the positive side of things. You could say, yes, you can do this, or yes, you can do this over here at this location, or yes, this type of conduct can occur here, but you can't say, no, you can't grow outside if you don't have 5 acres of land. You know,
First of all,
that's like classism.
Yeah, it is classism. That's the point. Is the idea that to caregive for a sick patient, I got to own 6 acres of property? That's fucking insane.
And a mule.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's and the act, as we know it, as we've addressed this before on the show, is the integrity of the act was meant to be sacred in the home, either a home or otherwise. But when you shove it into a home occupation category, now they can limit you on the number of wattage coming to your house from consumers' energy. Now they can limit you on the space. Now they can limit you on setbacks. And so in Flushing Township's case, what they've said is you can't grow 50 feet off a property line. Well, if someone's property is only 100 foot wide, well, hell, that's to the center of your house. That's making it inoperable. That's saying you can't grow anywhere on your property. It's only 100 foot wide, and you can't grow 50 foot from the property ends. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's a tricky way of politicians saying you can't. And then the other issue, of course, is, how do we address it? The other issue is you got to ask yourself the question, and everybody should be asking themselves the question, why this sudden jump to do this, especially in communities that haven't even opted in for the MMFLA? And I can tell you that answer. It's because with legalization has come a little bit of freedom and a little bit of a policy where you have outsiders. When I use the word outsiders, I mean, that's what I'm saying, outsiders. That's what everybody tells me. Well, these are outsiders. We went to the Vienna Township meeting 2 weeks ago on a Monday, and clearly, there's a guy that lives on the Ohio-Michigan border, okay? And it doesn't take a genius to figure out what he's doing. He just comes up here, he rents a home in Vienna Township, doesn't live there, he's got a remote growing operation, got a remote camera system, and he gutted the house from top to bottom and turned it into a grower operation. That's not a caregiver thing, that's a trap house, okay? Now, I'm not trying to be mean to anybody that does that, but at the same time, you want me to be a good regulator in this? Fine, I'll be a good regulator. But you don't even live in my community. You're coming here disturbing my neighbors. You don't even take care of the property. You don't mow the grass. You get police calls there all the time. Whatever. I mean, now you're a jerk.
That's kind of I understand. I mean, you might be saying that as a politician or whatnot, but. Like to call out the illegality of listen. Listen. I don't even know what that means. There's a better way to combat this, and the discussion of words you're using, Eric, are, if I may say, not great choices. And let me explain what I'm trying to say here, and I don't mean this mean.
I get that.
No, you're because
I'm repeating what I hear.
Okay, all right, but here's the thing: the trap house thing is just that it's illegal. Marijuana is illegal everywhere, right? They don't, like I said, it's not legal there or here or wherever they're doing it. That's the problem. The problem is it's Schedule 1. The problem is that that guy's not hurting anybody. And whatever you're fighting for about over-regulating this shit is really just fucking fodder that's going to, fill up some space until somebody gets, and people will be hurt along the way. There's
that's
what
I'm trying to
listen, all of this energy is misplaced. It really is. And I'll tell you that, I don't know. I mean, I understand that it's all about compromise and it's all about trying to maybe even incrementally move things along. But I can't help but to say, and I mean this with love in a way, because it's, I've always said, that it's nice that you have at least the green zone Genesee. That's not to say I've had a lot of cases in Genesee. In fact, I was just reminiscing the other day of the first jury trial in the state of Michigan. Eric, remember that in front of Judge Nethercutt? First jury trial in the state of Michigan for medical marijuana.
That was in Shiawassee, wasn't it?
No,
Flint.
the first one I think was the second one was in.
Shiawassee.
Yep, right. Jury was but you showed up at the first one. It was Nethercutt, and he ended up throwing it on a directed verdict. It's an interesting case because he threw it on a directed verdict. The Court of Appeals reversed and remanded for trial like in 10 seconds. But while that was going on, a case in Michigan called, I'll think of it in a second, it was going to the U.S. Supreme Court about whether or not Michigan's law that treated jury verdicts and judges' verdicts differently. Like a jury verdict, if that was a jury verdict, they can't appeal, it's over. Right. The judge who directed a verdict in my favor saying blah, 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 and was reversed later on is a phenomenon. There's only like 5 or 6 states in the country that still do it that way. And the U.S. Supreme Court said Michigan's going to get on board. You know, the case, it's a good case. Some of the other case that went up, it wasn't my case. Some of their case was dealing with the same thing, went up to the Supreme Court. Our appeal had been stayed pending the outcome of that. And when that decision came out, the proper application was that, can't appeal the directed verdict. We're entering a not guilty. See what I'm saying? It was great. So, I mean, it's just historic. I think we were the first jury trial of medical marijuana and really the first case other than the seminal case to be impacted by it. Right? I mean, so, Eric, you don't remember this? I mean, and the crazy part of the case was it started in Oakland County, and a guy met someone at Mr. B's in Oakland County to sign them up as a caregiver, and they got robbed at gunpoint.
Well,
and they chased
the crime.
And they chased after him and reported him to the police. The guys with the guns, he chased after them, found their license plate, reported to the police. They're writing the story. Next thing you know, they're out in the guy's house. Yeah. And Davison raiding his place, gathering evidence.
Forget the guys with the guns. This guy's
don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say this. We showed up at the preliminary exam. Guess who was sitting next to me? The guys that robbed them at gunpoint.
Oh my!
It was one of those. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. It's out there. It's a good unpublished opinion to read, and it was anyway. So what was I saying? So you got that zone. You got that zone out there, and the reality is that behavior, Eric, that green zone in it, to giving it the safe place. Caregivers one come all. It may be I mean, yes, whatever good it's done, it's all being challenged right now, and nobody really knows how to deal with it. The ideas that are being perpetuated here, albeit consistent with the way things have been treated, albeit said with integrity and good intentions, but if you're talking about caregivers not being limited to the 5 patients, what planet is that going to fly on? You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that anybody is going to allow that and authorize it publicly. And if they do, it has really no value because the state is going to tell them in the hardest way possible by they're rating. Like, look at whatchamacallit. What was the name of the like last year? And we have another client in the UP that same thing happened to, but they were like a club that was doing retail sales. What was it down here? They got raided. Yeah, maybe no charges, but they could raid them, take all their money, wait for it to happen again, build a CCE case, whatever. I don't know. You can charge someone with a felony if it's
habitual.
Yep, habitual for commercial purposes, willful. So I mean.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got a lot of laws that need reforming. I mean, where are the Democrats? Where are the Republicans to reform these laws? Now,
Eric,
one is passed.
Eric,
I mean, I'm doing it.
I don't know that we don't need more laws. We need more common sense.
Let's reform it. I mean, I just repealed a law on Tuesday. Who the fuck does that? You can't even show me one other community in the entire state of Michigan that's done that.
How about a basic education on the governance of a community and what is allowed and what isn't allowed, and the hierarchy of state law applying at the local level. If any of this conversation is that they think they can prohibit 12 plants from being grown in an adult's home, and they're somehow getting into that, and they think that that's something that they can do, is that part of the conversation? Forget the patient.
Yeah, look.
That's not a thing, Eric.
You're gonna have all. Look, let me tell you right now. In the last just in the last 6 months, I have been blown away by the knowledge of how much power and authority a local community has. And I know that a lot of people would argue with me right now and say, no, locals have very little power and all this and that. But let me tell you what, I have seen some things in my 8 years of office at a local trustee level that has blown my mind. I mean, I've been elected 3 terms now. I have seen an insurance company literally bend to the willpower of a local ordinance. I've never seen that in my life. I didn't even know that was even humanly possible.
Well,
Okay? Yet they have to pay out according to our local township ordinance. That's unheard of. Yet it happens. And I'll tell you right now, like the whole COVID-19 thing. I mean, dude, right after the election, we were all sick of that shit and we got rid of that. And the state police came in, tried shutting down my township meetings. And we went real simple. Okay? I mean, I don't care what the governor says. Okay? My township went 1, 2, 3, 4, fuck off.
Well, you just have to remember.
Well,
not too
if you were going to talk,
ago,
if you're going to talk about a total insane power grab where it's not appropriate by a local official telling us what the fucking law of the state is, you've seen it here, evidence fresh on PGT. This is not how it's supposed to be. If we're going to be a citizenry of laws, there's got to be some understanding. I know what you're saying, Eric. There's a lot of that's not how we do it here, but that's why we have a constitution.
Yeah.
That's why we have injunctions.
And you could say, oh, the governor's doing whatever she wants to protect the citizens of.
I'm not saying. No, I'm not saying that. No one's saying that.
I mean,
I'm saying don't be in a city government.
Protect my residents against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. That includes the governor.
Don't be a.
Anybody.
well, this is one of those.
I didn't realize that you.
situations.
Go ahead.
You got to remember that she just tossed that one lady into jail for however long. So you just got to, be careful about that.
Look, the state police can walk into our township meetings and scare us all we want, and they can talk to the hand. It's just, I know that sounds crazy in some communities, because in some communities, they'd be shaking in their boots if the state police came in and said, "Oh, you're gonna shut down a meeting," okay?
Shut it down.
Might as well be an episode of Tombstone, It's, law don't go around here, law dog.
I didn't realize that Thetford Township cured COVID. That's amazing. You guys are kind of selfish for not sharing the cure. It's amazing to me that you could do that and no one else can. Kind of selfish. You're a selfish little group, and
it's a typical scenario of the emperor's not winning any clothes, or the emperor's new clothes. You know what I'm saying? Like someone had to say, "Hey, look, enough of this."
Do you know anyone that's been passed away because of COVID, Eric? I'm just curious.
Oh yes.
Did anyone in Thetford get it? Yes or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you think
I got it. Oh yeah.
You had the.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
I think
It's funny because you may have gotten it at a meeting. Do you think you got it at a meeting, public meeting?
No, I
Did
didn't
you get
it
it
at a
from
meeting.
the
You don't know
gas
that.
handle?
Do you think you gave it to someone else while you're at the meeting? I'm sure you've got a no mask, no shirt policy, which is allowed, right? Okay.
We lost it.
We lost him.
We lost our feed.
Well,
Justin!
I can hear you.
Oh, there he is!
Oh,
What happened?
we've got no audio.
What?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Video.
Yeah.
Wow.
Video, Justin.
Video went out.
I get it. So it's just basically like really like.
Politics is weird because you might say
weird.
that.
Weird. Sounds stupid to me the way you're describing it. But go ahead.
It is weird. It is bizarre. It is stupid in a lot of ways, guys. I hate it so much I had to become a part of it. Okay, that's how I feel about it. Okay, but when you talk about the conflicts between local and state, man, you're talking about sky's the limit there. I mean, that's always going to be a conflict.
Okay. I may be right and I may be wrong, but I know that if they are doing something that crosses the line, it's right. It's not easy to sue a city, right? But just because they are, especially on some of these other complex issues, who knows the MMA? I mean, you can consult how many people. You can read an opinion, wanted to say one thing. You got 12 lawyers in the Michigan Municipal League. You got Gerald, what's his face, Fisher from Cooley or whatever. Professor writes. That guy's been consulting them. Writes a bunch of articles for the Institute of Continuing Legal Education on these topics. And how many people are really giving valid advice? In fact, all of it really is, and I will tell you, the legalese in this area, there's no path on this local regulation shit. As I told you, everyone's doing what they're doing, thinking that they're allowed to do it. And the only reason they're doing that is because their interpretation of DeRuyter in their mind and the way that the Michigan Municipal League interpret it gives them this ability to start doing this. But there's nothing else other than that. And it's still within a limited manner in which they're going to
and I thought DeRuyter only referred to a caregiver enterprise on commercial property only.
Yeah, I always took it to be commercial also.
I mean, clearly
where somebody's going to the city,
yeah,
and asking them, look, I'm going to open a bookstore here or a tanning salon or something else. I want to do my caregiving here, okay? Right. Same kind of thing. The city would say, okay, we're going to come out and do an inspection to make sure that it's habitable, safe.
Right.
Give you a certificate of occupancy that, all the electricity and whatever you got to do so that no one within the city walks in there and they fall in a crack and kill themselves. That's what the city would be obligated to do. That's the type of thing that they would normally regulate, right?
Right.
And they want, and so that's the extent of it.
And that's
in my community.
I'll tell you what they want to stop. They want to stop people running commercial enterprises on a residential property. That is it, guys. That's what they want to stop.
Under the home-based business law, you're allowed to run a commercial enterprise in your home up to a certain dollar amount.
That's right.
Well, and up to a certain square footage of the home. Remember, there's a clause in there, Adam, that talks about only 25% of the usable floor space of your home can be used as a home-based business.
I think I don't know. I think the home-based business. I mean, I don't know. Isn't somebody that's signing up for a home-based business by virtue of signing up for a home-based business admitting that their behavior with the MMA is non-compliant and subjecting them to commercial, habitual, willful marijuana, deliveries with remuneration? Isn't that exactly?
And it's not a sale of a controlled substance.
Right.
So how do you call it a home business?
It's not.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not. But
I'm
if
saying
they are going to call it a home business, then it has rights, the same rights as other home businesses.
Except the fact that. Except the fact that the behavior that one was limited to under the MMA, and the only reason that someone would receive immunity is if you're selling to your only 5 patients. Maybe there's a caregiver-to-caregiver transactions. We can talk about that. Plant sales, whatever. But if you're running it like you're just selling, to patients and whatnot, there's a real problem. I'm saying that we have the McQueen case, and the people that are on the selling end, to the patient, is not a. It's an asymmetrical protection for the patient. Now, maybe that's the whole thing. If it's caregiver to caregiver or something like that, it's another story. But I still don't think that anyone's going to sign off on that. And nor should. The other Eric. See, the whole problem here is that when they designate these places as being businesses, 2 things are happening. One is the city is trying to say that they can create this commercial enterprise within the bounds of the city, but they can't. They can't stop the commerce clause, if there was one, of it transferring it to other communities, right? They can't control that. And the second that something like that happens, it's interfering with the state law. And besides, you've got if any of these other cities have,
Do you know what's crazy though, Michael? Is that look, it's federally illegal, okay? Yet, and when we take an oath, you're supposed to uphold federal law as well, right? Well, that all goes right out the frickin' window the minute you talk about money. The minute you go to offer a township or a city money, well then, oh, what federal law are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Federal law. In fact, my township met on an idle Thursday in the middle of a snowstorm, an 8-inch to 16-inch snowstorm, to break federal law just so that we could receive the monies from the MMFLA licensing. Okay, so I mean, there you have it again. Every single local community in Michigan that adopted the MMFLA licensing had to break federal law by vote, by virtue of a vote.
Yes, but they're
listen. Where are all the elected officials in Michigan going to jail?
Well, there's an exemption for a number of reasons. One, the policy of the federal government has been that so long as they follow the protocols set forth in the Attorney General, one of them was Holder, the other one was
yep.
What's his face? I don't know.
Cole? Was it Cole, the
Cole memo, right? And also we've got the ongoing rider to the federal budget every year, sometimes called the Rohrabacher
Amendment. Yeah.
Then you had Trebeek, which said that Michigan occupies the field of control and that federal law does not supersede the state of Michigan.
It says the same thing in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. There's a carved-out area that gives the states the rights to make their own medical decisions. Right. That's the only reason that takes place. The issue becomes if they're transferred across state lines. So these are not new ideas. This has been around for a long time. The whole idea of the state medical marijuana principles were seen through the needle that existed, the eye of the needle that existed within the Controlled Substance Act that allowed states to make these decisions. And here we are, right? So, I mean, Eric, your thing was we're all violating federal law. No, I don't think you are. I think that, first of all, the cities are, you know, what do? You make laws and you fucking manage a city. You know, you're not fucking engaging in marijuana. You may give out a license for it, but that's pursuant to state law. Eric, there's not one sick case. There's not
drug sales.
There's not one case that's existed, and there's a lot of other states that we could look to see if a clerk of a legislative body who would give out that based upon some decisions made, zero, okay? And giving it out doesn't mean, it's a stretch because you're not handling the marijuana. You're letting someone do it. I think you're run into more problems as a legislature. Listen, you're running into. Listen,
Michigan, the new drug kingpin.
I would tell you this: that if I got if I was representing someone in federal court because they were pulled into federal court because they went with the suggested insanity of the law, that they're going to say, okay, you got to get a home business. You got to build a structure here. You got to build this amount of thing, and you can build your buildings over here. You can grow as many plants you want, pay tax, and sell whatever you want. And nowhere in state law does it allow this, other than whatever town we're talking about. And they're just fucking doing whatever the fuck they want, bringing the feds and take them up there. You know what the defense is going to be?
I have no clue.
I didn't know.
Entrapment by estoppel, because the government told me I could do it.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I learned this.
I don't even know that's going to work. It's not going to work. But I mean, if it doesn't work, what the fuck, right? They told me it's okay. It's a falsity. It's a leading someone into it. You know how many people got local approval and said, well, the city. How about I could tell you a lot of people, as we know, but the one was there's the stories told the Sale Agro case and Barb Agro from the Ferndale.
Sure.
You know, the mayor. What's his name, Adam, that from Ferndale? That was Craig Covey was there in the shop saying what a great place it was, and blah 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 blah. Like they loved the place.
But to be clear, he had nothing to do with what happened at their shop.
No, but he was the mayor.
Yes, he was.
They passed the law approving of this.
They did.
He went over. They did a big announcement. The city wanted them there. They gave him full approval. There's no way in the world they ever thought days later Bouchard and his goons would be kicking down the doors and then going out to their house To which, ripping that thing apart and sale, of course, died 10 days later. It's just, nobody even thought that was in the Barbag or...
Did these people just move to Oakland County? How did they not think that? Bouchard was a fucking animal when it came to this. I mean, listen, I have a lot of respect for the agros because they opened in Oakland County. The fact that Ferndale might have embraced them, great.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying.
You know who the highest law enforcement officer in your area is the sheriff.
We know that. My point is Eric is acting like Ferndale to these people. He's saying to them in this legislation that, hey, come do it the way you want to do it, and even though it's not in state law and even though it's directly competing with, because this is a home commercial grow, we're going to get them to do this other things that are directly compete with the state industry that's statewide regulated. Nobody's going to like that. You're asking for trouble from them, and it's a fallacy to invite them into this.
You know what needs to be done? The micro license needs to be fixed. Everybody I've talked to says that micro license isn't even worth the paper it's printed on.
How about just a 100-plant grow? How about just a 100-plant grow?
Yeah,
they're doing it anyways. Make them get regulated. How about that 100-plant grow in your ordinance allows them to do it in a home occupation? Bam! Put that in your pipe and smoke it. We're gonna close it out right there. That's the answer, Aaron.
Maybe not the 100-plant grow, but
why not?
84 plants.
Why not? 84. Forget the fucking caregiving shit. Forget it. Stop with the fallacy. Just listen. I love caregivers. I'll defend them to the death. But the reality is the writing is on the wall. Okay, and there's always going to be a gray market. And nothing that I say is going to end it. Nothing that I'm saying is going to end it. But if you're going to go into the transparency world and start making laws and inviting people to come out there, don't fucking do it the way you're doing it. Make it easier for the caregivers to get licensed. Let them grow at home if they do what you're doing. Make it if I can get a state license to grow 100 plants in that scenario, I'd rather do that. And everyone can get a rec license. The bar's low. No capitalization requirements. Do that.
Do you think a township would give someone a rec license at their home, a residence?
If they zone it for multi-purpose.
Zone it.
They could be industrial. Listen, if the city wants it, they'll do it. Most of those places are agricultural.
Right. That's a true statement. If the city wants it, they'll do it.
Right. The city gets to decide how they're going to lay this shit out. You guys have the right idea to make it inspectable. You just got to make it, like they don't even get tax revenue from it. They don't even have to create this fallacy.
I'll tell you what needs to happen, guys.
And let them do they'll get multiple ones on the property as well.
We need to lobby the state and get the caregiver.
Don't say micro business. No.
Into the micro business. The micro business needs to be the one to take on the caregiver meds. I don't even know anybody that can even make a micro business even work.
It doesn't. Listen. It's like listen.
It doesn't even work.
Why does it? Listen. They're two separate businesses.
It doesn't work.
They're two separate businesses. There are two separate businesses. Growing marijuana is one business, and the other retail is a whole other business that requires that. I'm just talking about growing marijuana. These places are probably agricultural in nature. They're going to have some pole barns that they're going to have some requirements by the state, which is mostly fire safety and, walls and things to that effect, cooling water.
I think if you have your typical codes up to code, then you should be able to do what you want. Okay.
You know what? Just stop with your shit. I'm telling you, don't try to regulate something into caregiving that doesn't exist. You will. It's stupid. Instead, make it easier for the caregivers to transition into the commercial market with 100 plants. That's it. And make it so easy that they don't have to buy a building. Let them put up some greenhouses. Let them lead the way with low energy, better green print, better for the thing. And they're not going to be subject to the same cost of every month with a fucking building and rent. And they can, build it, they can do a whole, thing there and show it, lead the way there. You got so many opportunities. I would not try to create something that is going to be resisted by print. Listen, not only is the state going to be against you, who's going to be pushing the state? The commercial market. Yep. What the fuck are they doing in Thetford or whatever? They're letting them sell this. What did I get a license for?
No, we've opted in. We've opted in. Look, I mean, we just approved new facilities tonight.
Good. Why are you going to let the caregivers compete with that? I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's just
caregiver model still exists, Michael.
it doesn't exist. You'll never be able to make it exist for what you want it to be. And if there's scrutiny brought to that, Eric, it's going to be contrary to the license. I'm not saying I won't defend it. I'm not saying any of this is right.
You're right.
But I'm saying to you, the second you say, oh, caregiver gets away with this without having to disclose who I am, and I'm going to do it, and that's the fucking way it is, and they've left us alone, and now you have a competing market that's producing $100 million of sales a month, and you're going to let a bunch of caregivers run wild and do whatever the fuck they want. It's not, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You know, and I'm saying, and especially if these people have been able to get away with what they've been getting away with, but now they have to disclose who they are and put themselves on a list and get audited. I mean, you're just setting them in what, the MMA behavior? Yeah, go, you know, that's just it's a nightmare. I love it when people tell me, you know, tell me how to make money in the MMA. I want to do it all compliant. I mean, I can give you advice, but it's not. But there's no one's going to agree with anything that I say. And if you get caught, you know, just shut the fuck up and we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And hopefully you've been listening. But the point is that all of that, Eric, is just fodder that is we can spin and talk about. Do you remember that? Remember the? I forgot who it was. Someone came in. Adam will remember this. There was, I think it was Greg Schmidt or something like that, came up with the model of. It was almost like a logic puzzle, but like it was like you'd have the 5 caregivers and the patient, and then you know, it was like moved how everyone could transfer between everybody or something like that. You know, it was like a dots on a page with names, caregiver 1, 2, 3, and how you could create this whole.
I seem to recall that.
But anyways, my point is this. As I said, I love the caregiver model. I defend caregivers all day. We do a lot of stuff with trying to push back on the cities and some of the stuff that's going on, and there may be some lawsuits filed. But I think coming out of this, Eric, is a trend across the state. More cities are going to be doing this, okay? And I think one of the ways for them to, you know, to give opportunities to people where they don't have to, you know, I mean, listen, I know this. I know that the premise of the 100 plant grow has been said to be an invitation for, you know, caregivers that have a good product, that the ones that could compete to get something on a shelf when they're allowed to do that, you know, a much easier path to get into the marketplace. And the effort and energy to go into that. Now, the problem is they have to get a building. There's limited places that have, you know, opted in, you know, and of the places that have opted in, not all of them have opted in just for rec. A lot of them make you get the medical first. But if you got the opportunity right here, instead of making war here and creating potential huge losses, there is some stuff to work with. The cities can create this home, you know, what do you call it? It'd be an agricultural zone for agriculture. They can do that there for the growing, and fucking who cares?
But do you think that a home occupation?
It's it's residential and agricultural.
Into a micro license? I mean, I just can't see.
Why do you say micro license? Forget the micro. When you say micro license, it means growing and selling. All I'm talking about is at this home that's got a farm behind it, and they build a pole barn or 2, and maybe they get 4 licenses later. And they let them carve up the land and never can use, you know, who knows? And you get a bunch of 100 plant licenses at the same, you know, city has unlimited licenses for 100 plants at your property, but they got to be this far apart or something. You could go to town. They could actually have some competition with the bigger grows. You could set that entire thing up, get tax revenue from it, give opportunities for these, you know, I mean, listen, there's nothing preventing them from doing that. If they had land that was, listen, let me say it this way. If they had land that was agricultural and the zoning laws said that the marijuana growers cultivation can take place in agricultural areas, and they want to grow outside and put up some fencing that makes it locked in and closed, they can do that. There's nothing stopping them, period. Absent some crazy...
My question is, what were these ordinances intended to correct? Because it sounds like what the problems might be with home grows in communities are not necessarily being corrected. Instead, it's being moved to a different scenario.
Adam is correct. What the actual problem is not what is actually being drawn up in language to correct. And that is the problem here. And what I'm trying to show these communities is that if you want to have an ordinance that makes sense, don't do it under home occupation. Do it as a code enforcement. Say, look, you say it's a real simple. Like I have an ordinance draft, okay, and my ordinance draft does not call it a home occupation. My ordinance draft is just a code enforcement, okay? It means if there's a discovery, okay, on someone's home and they have gutted this thing, spray painted the windows black, there's no hot water heater, you got nobody even lives there. It's just a one massive grow operation in a residential home between.
Well, that wouldn't be but that wouldn't have an occupancy permit as a residential home. It wouldn't be occupiable under the ordinance already.
Right, which in my ordinance, all I did was draft language that said, look, if there's no valid certificate of occupancy, then you can't grow there. If if your electrical or your plumbing is not up to code, you can't grow there. Okay, but so like in that case in Vienna Township, I mean, the cops walked in. I mean, they go to the kitchen sink, they turn the hot water on, and there's no hot water. Okay, because the guy doesn't need hot water to grow plants. Okay, so that's not a residence anymore.
Why are you so upset about that?
Yeah, what happened?
Why are you so upset about that?
Experience
Go
over there?
rent a commercial property.
Right, but for
That's
$100
just being a good neighbor. That's not. I mean.
What if he was taking care?
Don't be a dick to your neighbor ordinance.
What if he was just doing that? He didn't live there, and he just used the house to grow marijuana for his actual patients.
Then there's exceptions. Even my ordinance has a consideration clause, and in the consideration, any decision made by law enforcement, code enforcement, building inspector, or otherwise can be overridden by a majority vote of the municipality board. I have a consideration clause right in there. If you think that your privilege has been denied, you can appeal to the board of trustees or the city council, and by a majority vote, they can override any decision that a police officer's made. They can override any decision that a building inspector's made. Code enforcement, doesn't matter. They can override it.
Overridden.
Well, my concern has always been that somebody's doing something that under the law they're allowed to do, under state law they're allowed to do, but a neighbor doesn't like it and figures it out, whether it's an odor issue, a trash issue, whatever, and files a complaint. At which point your ordinance officer comes out and rings the doorbell, and I know people this has happened to, and the guy's standing on the front porch and he doesn't smell any odor, but he has to respond to this complaint. Well, he doesn't have to respond to the complaint. He has to investigate the complaint, and when he doesn't find any odor, there's no reason to knock and talk. And if society treated ordinances properly, mind you, I would be interested in how many ordinance violations are written in your county or in your community regularly. Because if you're not writing ordinance, it's the broken windows theory that Giuliani brought to New York City. And if you're not writing ordinance violations for people having their grass too long, or leaving their garbage cans out overnight, or parking their cars wrong, and then you're writing for marijuana violations, well, that ends up being dirty pool, in my opinion.
Well, and Adam, we just had a meeting 2 weeks ago about hiring a code enforcement officer, and the first thing he said was, "Do you guys have a grass ordinance?" And we were like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, well, you got to have one of those."
Right.
And I was like, "Fuck that." I'm like, "This is Thetford Township. This is more rural than it is urban." Like,
but
you have a hard time.
Was it explained? Was your return on investment explained to you? How much money a ordinance officer could bring in?
Of course, but of course
you don't find that. You don't. Wait, hold on. As a non-politician, as an actual human being, you don't find that somewhat disingenuous to the argument?
Oh, absolutely, I do. I absolutely do that.
And that's the problem, is that politicians do not, because they're in the game of making money for the community, and anything they can do to make money for the community, they do.
You're right. You're right, and that's why I encourage other people like myself to run for public office, because you need to be a voice of reason on every board, on every city or every township. And the fact that, I mean,
You know what? We can't.
And I said this at the meeting. I said, people, if you're going to sit there and well, I mean, what are we going to do? Set the grass height? I mean, does it have to be 3 3/4 inches before we fight?
Let me tell you something. This is sickening to me. This is sickening. This is sickening to me.
In my township, you can't even drive. Every third house has a woods, creek, brush, swamp, bog, bayou, wetland in front of it. You can't tell where one person's yard ends and
who are you yelling at? Who are you yelling at? I'm at your constituency. I'm going to criticize you and the world you live in right now. I'm just going to tell you. This is sickening to me that anyone is a legislator and they spend time talking about it and then bringing their shit here to talk about Planet Green Trees. But I mean, I invited it, so it's fine. But I'm saying to just talk about the idea that this is something being discussed and that you would become hot-headed about it means that we've got too much government. The problem is there's too many people involved. You should be bringing amendments to eliminate people. We only need 2 or 3 people. We don't need 7 people. Let's start with that. Let's start with that. Get rid of everybody. Only because you have salaries. You only need an enforcement officer so you can get some money to pay some fucking salaries because you don't have enough revenue coming in from your tax fucking investments to real estate. And you should be thinking about that as a way to fucking do it right, not hiring people to fucking ticket people. That's bad. That's fucking bad. That's violations of people.
We have not even hired a code enforcer because I've been bringing the debate so hardcore. And I go, what the heck are you gonna do? You're gonna have them drive around here and tell these people your grass is too long? I mean, that's craziness. Hey, there's not a resident in my township that would go. I mean, there might be.
Why is he screaming at me again? Like I introduced the bill. It's like I had something to do with it. I'm saying.
But at the same time,
fired up, my man.
At the same time, they're willing to give weed people a hard time for the shit they do in their house.
Right, I know.
And you know what? But here's my question: would they allow a hospice situation in a home? That's a medical situation. They don't require that to be done in a medical institution. You can hospice in your home. You can go home to die. You can go home and be put on a morphine drip and, wait a few days. That's not a problem.
Tell your people at the thing there, if they start doing some caregiver shit like they're doing, it's then that they will be dragged into it. It is then that they will become conspirators in some federal some fucking violation, because all of the things about, so long as the, actors are participating in the regulated system, they'll remain immune. The federal government is not using resources to do. But if you create a law that allows caregivers to do something that has always been not allowed,
no, there's no. You don't have to There's no language for that. I'm not trying to create language for that. But what I am trying to do, is with the code enforcement, okay?
I don't care. I don't want. Listen, I heard you. I heard what you were saying, what you're trying to do, and I'm going to suggest this: stop trying to do what you're trying to do, and instead try to convince your fellow litigators, legislators, to think about allowing opportunities for real businesses there. They can create an agricultural mecca for these farmers that want to do it anyways. It's the easiest path. Don't make it so difficult.
It is. The one of the killers of that micro business.
Fuck the micro business. Leave the micro business. Every creates the retail. Now you gotta have a commercial retail fucking zoning. I'm talking growing. Watch me. GROW. Grow, not sell. Yep. Grow. That's all. It's easier because it can be anywhere as long as it's agricultural, right? Don't confuse it. You keep saying micro. Micro business is 2 of those things, and there's not enough plants.
Yeah, I think we already have too many plants, and I think we're all going to see this whole thing fail in a short amount of time. I don't know if this market can sustain it. I really don't. I think Michigan's huge, but I think it's you guys are way past closing time of the show, aren't you?
Yeah, well, we were just thinking about how we'll have to have you on one of these upcoming shows to go into this a little bit more. So,
yeah, for sure.
Thank you guys for coming on tonight.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Eric, thanks guys. Adam, Eric, Appreciate you guys.
appreciate you
Good
guys.
stuff.
Michael,
and,
always love you. Always
enjoy the
appreciate it.
conversation.
Good seeing you again.
It's good seeing you guys.
Yep.
All right.
We'll pick it back up again.
Sounds good. Bye, you guys. Good night,
Take care.
everyone. Tune in next week.
Debate continues.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.